I have two special guests in with me as promised. Al Anderson is here. Al is a former board member of the radio, longtime supporter, and one of his longtime projects has been this Friends of the Bandshell. So good morning, Al. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Katya.
And then also we have a new board member. Her name is Mary Planten-Krell, and she is, like I said, a new board member and a newcomer to the Bandshell business, but clearly it has not taken her much time to get rolling here. Thank you so much, Mary, for being with us this morning also.
Good morning.
Good morning. So let's get started a little bit here. Anyone who listens to this station for long knows that the Friends of the Bandshell has been a vision for a long time. There's been quite a bit of money raised. There's been a lot of meetings. And there's a whole group of people dedicated to redoing the Bandshell. Al, do you want to just give us a brief history of when this whole idea started, why it started, and where it has led up to this point?
Well, sure, I can do that. As you said, the Bandshell project has been going on for quite a while, and it has evolved over time. So I hope we can talk about that evolution as we go through this morning. The need for a new facility in Thomas Owens Park started to become very apparent 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, and 10 years ago. And a group of concerned city band members and other community members met extensively for quite a while and came up with a vision for something new and exciting that would not only alleviate the problems caused by an aging frame stucco building that was built in the 1930s.
Wonderful as it is.
Wonderful as it is, and it's been the site of so many wonderful moments for so many people in this town. But it would not only replace that, but it would provide something much more important to the community and to all the user groups, which during the last 20 years, or last 10 years especially, have become more and more numerous as time goes on. Not only is it a city band facility, but it's a dance theater facility, concerts in the park. The Duluth Symphony Orchestra has, or at least part of the orchestra, has played on that Bandshell. So it's becoming very important, and it's the hub of the community in a lot of ways.
It is, and it definitely has a very rich history. I'd say just in the last decade even, I've seen it's wonderful when a group decides it's time for an event or a concert, or bring in some musicians from elsewhere. There is this place for it to come, and yet it has its limitations as well. Mary, will you talk with us a little bit about the new sort of revisioning of what this Bandshell project is all about?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I moved up to this part of Minnesota about 4 years ago. I'm a flute player. And one of my first questions was, well, where can I play? And one of the first answers was, well, have you looked at the at city band in Two Harbors? I said, no, never played in a city band. So I came down here. I'm in Silver Bay. And I started playing with the band, and I loved it.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you do that.
And so there was about a year and a half that I had playing with them, and then COVID hit. So then there was sort of a gap, and now I'm playing again. But one of the things I noticed probably the first time I came to play was that you pretty much take your life in your hands when you come to this Bandshell. Getting up and down from downstairs to upstairs is really a life
can be a life-threatening challenge.
Absolutely. So then I started talking with some of the people in the band and learned about this project, and I quickly said, I realized as I looked at the park and as I looked at other performing groups in town, theater and dance and other musical groups that are on the North Shore, I thought, well, this is more than just a Bandshell, for heaven's sakes. So I got more and more interested. I looked at the mock-up that had been done, the work that had been done so far. There's been a tremendous amount of preparatory work done. Really, that whole phase has been done already. And I thought, this is incredibly exciting to have a regional performing arts center in Two Harbors, which is a great location. Really, there's nothing like this anywhere north of Duluth. And this summer there was some great music in Silver Bay, but just on a stage.
Right,
I mean, it was really, it was great. And if it can be that great just on a stage, think of what we could offer here in Two Harbors if we had a facility where not only the performances could occur in the good times of the year, weather-wise, but where we could also rehearse. We could actually store music and instruments and everything that goes along with the performing arts. It would be incredibly exciting.
Wow, and I'm so glad that you are not afraid to sort of leap into the fray as a newcomer and be part of this vision. So it sounds like even the name, the branding, the messaging, it's all sort of expanding into this regional arts center that would be about music, but also even more than music. Al, do you want to share your, since you've been here from the beginning, like, what do you think of all this?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. But let me explain a little bit more about what the vision has turned into. I mentioned that a group of city band members and citizens met extensively early on in the process. It did not take very long before we realized that this could not be a facility for the Two Harbors City Band, but it had to be a facility for the community. And over time, that vision has expanded to be that of what Mary said, a regional Lake County, North Shore area, a regional facility. The new facility will include an outdoor stage.
Oh, good. I didn't want to lose that.
No, it'll include an outdoor stage that is large enough to host an entire symphony orchestra. It will also include an indoor stage opening into an interior hall capable of seating up to approximately 200 people, depending on seating arrangements and if tables are used, etc. The indoor stage, although it looks rather small in our diagrams in our 3D model, is actually going to be larger than the existing outdoor stage of the band shell. So we're going to have a nice indoor facility that can be used not only for music, not only by the city band, but it can be used for theater productions or dance productions, for lectures, Chautauqua-type seminars on a year-round basis, because the building is going to be a year-round facility. The band part of the building, there will be an office for the city band and the storage of its $100,000 collection of band music. And that office will also be used by what we anticipate to be an executive director of the new facility. As those details are worked out, we'll know more about that. Also, there, like Mary said, will there be storage space for city band equipment, which right now is stored at various locations throughout the city during the off-season and subject to loss and damage because of that. And we'll have approximately 800 square foot space for a tenant to be in there too. And we're looking for possibilities on who that tenant might be, which would mean probably that there'd be somebody in the building 7 days a week or 5 days a week, and that would be a good thing all in all too. So the possibilities, when we start talking with people about this and they understand what the new scope can be, we're finding that people are coming to us with more ideas and interesting and exciting ideas on what the building could be used for. Another option along those lines is weddings and banquets and so on. It probably won't have a full kitchen, but a lot of events are catered these days, so that should not be a problem.
Very interesting. Yeah, just even just as you speak, my mind gets
good.
spinning about things. I know that we did a drama club for many years in town, and there was really no good place for those kids to either practice or have their performance.
Well, there will be when we get this project finished.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's wonderful to hear about all these conversations having taken place. One question I've had from a listener, which I'll throw out to you now, is the place for this new regional arts center. The area in front of the railroad tracks and the depot has been thrown out over again more than once to me at the radio as an empty space right now that's got waterfront and that isn't cutting down any trees in order to create whatever space would be needed for. Has that been considered, and is there anything you can say about what I hear is that a lot of preliminaries have already been done, and I don't want to just misrepresent anything. I just want to know if that the where has been addressed, and has that been finalized, or is that still a question?
Well, it sure has been discussed. Throughout the history of the project, it has been discussed and is still being discussed, but one of our main objectives from beginnings of the project has been to restore Thomas Owens Park to something that is beautiful and a center of the town. A town square concept is often mentioned, and that being an important part of our vision has always been at the front. We have looked at other options, but those options are pretty tenuous at this time and have been for a number of years. Witness the ideas for waterfront development and so on. And just because a piece of land is not apparently being used does not mean it is owned or is not owned by somebody who may or may not be able to cooperate in a way that would facilitate this project. There are some disadvantages to an outdoor stage down in that area, too. Being that much closer to the lake subjects us to the vagaries of Lake Superior, which can change in an instant and become pretty uncomfortable. And just being a few blocks away in Owens Park makes a big difference that way. And there's also a noise factor from the docks, and in a strong wind, the red taconite dust really can blow around, and we just don't see that it would be feasible to have an outdoor stage that may be not used for a few days and then have to wash the whole thing down before it's used for another performance. There are a lot of issues like that we've discussed, and the consensus is that our original project, that of making Thomas Owens Park the town center and town square of Two Harbors, Minnesota, is our best option. And to that end, one of the significant actions that the Friends of the Bandshell Park has taken is the purchase of a city lot on 3rd Avenue at the north end of the park. If you are familiar with the park, you will know that part of that park area is compromised by the existence of a dwelling, a big 2-story dwelling and a garage. We have purchased that entire property, and the intent is to incorporate that area after the buildings are removed into the park. Now that'll increase the size of the north half of the park by 50%. Yeah. And having the new facility at the south end of the park pointing to the north means that there'll be a wonderful wide and deep space for audiences and activities. And keep in mind also that landscaping of the park proper is a big portion of this project too, and we do have mock-ups and drawings of what that could look like, and it will be a beautiful place.
All right. It sounds like definitely a lot of thought and discussion and weighing of various factors and different entities and stakeholders has all gone into this. Mary, do you have anything to add to this picture that Al is painting for us?
No, not especially in terms of the space itself, but, before we moved up here, I was in the Twin Cities, and I worked with a number of nonprofits. That was sort of my focus of my career, and as such, I worked with a number of the major funders in the Twin Cities, and And I know from experience that in the last particularly 10 years, I think, a lot of the funders that fund projects all over Minnesota, Cargill, McKnight, lots of the major ones, increasingly have been looking at and favoring, I think, projects that don't just sort of replace something that exists in its current form, but are much more interested in seeing communities and funding communities that are looking to the future, that are looking to create something that meets current and future needs of a community rather than needs of maybe 50 years ago.
Very interesting.
So part of the thinking in a project like this is also, okay, where are we likely to get support from outside of just two harbors? Because, a project like this that costs $3.5 million, obviously we're not going to find all of that money here locally, although we're certainly hoping to get a portion of that from local funders and community members. We also have to keep an eye on where are the larger gifts, larger support for this likely to come, what kinds of interests, and we've put a lot of time and money into finding the answers to that question, because they're our partners, they're some of our important partners and collaborators. So we have to be able to find the resources to do something like this. So that's kind of another part of this picture is, how do we pay for it?
Right. I was going to ask that. And I really like your essentially go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
That's what
I think so.
is kind of the mantra that we have often used in our little family business. And I think seems to be exactly where you're headed. So if you're a listener right now and feeling all excited about this, how to get involved, and what kind of, I know that lots of money has already been raised for this. Clearly, you've already bought some more property. And is there a number we're looking at, or is it still all in flux? What can people do to support this project?
Well, one of the things that people can do to support this is to learn more about the project and to start to see the vision and to be excited about it. Once people get a taste of what we're hoping to offer here and set their minds and their imaginations free, I think great things are going to happen. One of the things that people can do is to ask questions, and they can go to our website, which is being reconstructed, and to bring it up to date with current conditions. So I sure invite people to reach out to me personally or any other board member. Our phone numbers can be found on the website, and learn more about it. And if you're inclined to help in a non-financial way, if you want to be a member of the planning and seeing this thing through, let's talk about that, and we'll examine the opportunities as to how you can participate and help out.
It sounds like many local projects, it needs not just time, not just money, but it needs time and investment from a lot of people. And I'm sure just about anyone will have opinions about this. And it sounds like you're very open to thoughtful ideas and opinions, and you need more input. Tell us again the website, or what's the best way to contact you and get involved?
Well, the website is Friends of the Bandshell Park, all one strung out lowercase word, .org. That's key, .org.
.org.
Yeah, and you'll find a link to donate financially if you're so inclined, and you will also find the information you need there to contact us.
I'm guessing that one thing you really would love are grant writers. That's always one of the most valued skills these days, it seems. And
well, it sure is, but we're fortunate that we do have 2 grant writers working with us right now that are they're covering all the bases. And it this is another subject for an additional half hour of discussion. Katya, is grant writing and the climate of philanthropic organizations and what they're looking for. Mary alluded to it earlier, and things did change with the advent of COVID.
So people that have been with this from the start can be assured that if you donated money many years ago, that is still there. It's ready to be activated when the opportunity opens. Is that right? It's the same project as always been.
Right. Well, there's so much preparatory work that goes into a project like this that I would never have guessed. But
yeah.
But we've taken this now to the point where, as far as fundraising needs now, it's all just to put into building the structure, basically, and the architectural work has been largely completed, and the soil samples and the site surveys and the purchase of the property, even going back farther, the feasibility study, which indicated this was a possible project. All very expensive.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time, but I want to make sure that you each have time to say some closing words. Mary, do you have anything else to add?
I would really encourage people with any sorts of ideas about whether it's about ways to draw people into the project with their ideas for, how this project could impact the community, or ideas about how we can find additional financial resources for it. All ideas are welcome, is what I'm trying to say. This has been a project, had it not been for COVID, we would have been where we are now about 2 years ago. Just if you look at the last 4 or 5 years, the fundraising had a nice start. All of that preparatory work that Alan mentioned was getting done. And then with COVID, most funders, really felt that money and funding needed to go to human beings first and foremost for human needs, for the kinds of for housing, for all the needs that people suddenly had that weren't so obvious before. So the arts really got kind of put to the side temporarily, and that included us. So for the last year and a half, 2 years, you can apply for grant funding, but a lot of that was put on hold. So we're kind of now jumping back into where we were really a year and a half ago. So we're wide open for people. If you think you have some interest in serving on the board, if you think if you have some interest in what this kind of a facility, how it could be used in this county, we're wide open. And I'm new on the board. We have one other new board member. It's really it's a community project. It's not just a project of a small group of people.
Yeah. Wonderful recap and summary. Al, do you have any closing words?
Only this. I have a vision of when this project is finished and the park is restored to what I remember it being as a kid in this town, that when we have company coming from out of town, the first thing we do is load them in the car and take them to see our park and our new performing arts facility.
And particularly when something special is happening that very weekend.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of things happening.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Katya.
Yeah, thank you both for coming in. Your commitment is so clear to this project, and it's. I have hopes that it really will have a huge impact on so many different facets of our community. I'm sure we'll have you again. But for today, thank you again, and we'll see you later. That was Mary Planten-Krell and Al Anderson speaking to me about the bandshell project.